Unano Show podcast.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the podcast. I am your host. All right, this story comes to you via one of my listeners, so here it is. This is about talking to spirits and communicating with spirits through things like furniture, which is kind of odd, but table tapping has gone back for, hundreds of years, okay? And it was done back in the medieval times, with seances to try to communicate with loved ones or spirits or whatever. All right, the dead, talking to the dead through table tapping. So, what it is you can place your hands on a table in a seance type of manner, 2 or 3 people or whatever, concentrate on, answering questions or asking questions to whoever may be listening on the other side. So, as a young man, or as a young child, I should say, I experienced this firsthand. The reason being I experienced this is because my mother was a single mother at the time. I was approximately 6 or 7, and she had hired a housekeeper / nanny, and her name was Alice. This particular woman had a thick Hungarian accent, looked exactly like you would think an old gypsy woman would look like. Anyway, she'd tell us bedtime stories and things of that nature and scare the shit out of us. In the first place, a bedtime story read to you by a woman in a thick Hungarian accent is not a pleasurable experience at all, especially when the bedtime story includes demons and murder and child abduction and all that. Anyway, she used to scare the crap out of us. But one particular evening, my mother was home from work. She wasn't at work. Alice was there. It was late at night. They were up drinking wine, talking, things of that nature. And I kind of woke up and I was hearing them talking and then kind of mumbling, and I was curious to seeing what was going on. So I poked my head out of my bedroom and looked down the hall, and there my mother and Alice sat with their fingers touching our coffee table, just their fingers, and there was some candles lit in the room. Some things were being mumbled over and over, an incantation of some sort. This was led by Alice. My mother joined in, of course, and then after a period of time, they started to ask yes and no questions. It would be a 1 tap for yes or 2 taps for no. So, experiencing this as a child, it was kind of freaky, but as I grew older and as we moved on through life, it just seemed that something had followed us, and not just me, my brother also. He experienced weird stuff going on in his life. So, you got to be careful of what you're inviting into your environment or to your dimension when you're trying to communicate with the dead. As I was saying, table tapping, it goes back hundreds of years. I mean, it was done back in the 13th century. It was done, all the way through the Dark Ages and all the way up through, through Britain and Hungary and Transylvania and all those European countries that were closely related to each other. Scotland. Anyway, I had witnessed this on many occasions while Alice was employed through my mother, to take care of us while my mother went to work. But I experienced this on quite a few occasions. It got more and more as the year or two, I think it was 3.5 or 4 years she was with us. But as that progressed throughout those years, it was things like the group grew in number. So it wasn't just my mother and Alice anymore. It was 3 or 4 different people also. And it got to a point where they were using our oak kitchen table, which was very, very solid, very heavy. And they would sit around and do incantation type stuff and seance things and actually get this table to rise up and tap on the floor. It was kind of a terrifying experience. So this brings me to not only table tapping, but to Ouija boards, because that's also, people communicating with the dead is through Ouija board, and I also have an experience for that. My mother, the same story here. My mother, she was married 2 or 3 times. All right, twice I believe she was married before I was 10. So me and my brother actually was living with her, and she was single at the time, and we were in a basement up a friend's house down the block, and there was 4 of us there, and we decided we were going to get out the Ouija board and ask some questions, or the Ouija board some questions, I should say. So there we are in the basement, candles lit, and we're messing with this Ouija board, and of course we all think that the other one is pushing it around, but that's probably not exactly what was going on. But I had thought that my brother was pushing it. He had thought that I was pushing it. Neither one was true. And even the neighbor kid, we accused him, and that wasn't true. So we was asking this board some questions, and it was actually answering us. Okay. One of the questions was, will my mother ever get married again? And the answer slid to yes. The planchette moved to yes. We didn't think much of that, so we asked again, all right, what is the name of the man my mother will marry next? And the planchette, it spelled out a name. Okay. Well, at this point, this name that it spelled out was actually a name of a famous actor. So I didn't give that much credit to that at all. And neither did my brother. Neither did the people that were there. Anyway, so without too much incident with this Ouija board, we put it away. Didn't give it much thought. Well, then we moved to our father's house for a while. Me and my brother did. And my mother decided she was going to get married again while we were actually out of state, in another state. So she called us up and she said, hey, I want to come pick you up for the summer and you can meet my new husband. And we said, okay, great. And so we waited, and she came and got us, and she introduced her new husband to us, and it was the name that the Ouija board had spelled out to us 2 years prior. And at that point, I decided right then and there, I knew that there was something going on. There's another side to life or death, or the line between life and death. So, in conclusion of my story, yes, I've experienced table tapping. Yes, I've experienced Ouija boards. And I've experienced people talking to the dead. And I've experienced people teaching others how to do that. And like I said before, if you do these things, you're just asking for trouble. There are things out there that will follow you, that will attach themselves to you, or attach themselves to things that may have been in your household. Case in point, the exact coffee table that my mother and our housekeeper was raising and using as a conduit to speak to the dead. My brother used that coffee table in his first apartment. I happened to be sleeping on his couch that night that this incident happened, and I was half asleep, I believe, and then my brother, he come out of his bedroom, and he's like covered in a sweat, and I see him, and he just grabs the coffee table off of the floor, and he walks out to the front, and he smashes it in the middle of the driveway. And then he comes back in, and I said, well, what the hell was that? He says, I don't know. He says, ever since I've had that table in my house, he said, I can't get any sleep. I've been having these dreams, and they've been terrifying dreams, he said, and I wake up in a sweat, and I can't sleep. And he said, that damn table. He said, ever since I got that table from Mom's. So he said, I just smashed the shit out of it. And hopefully it won't bother me anymore. Well, years went by, and in all actuality, we moved to 3 or 4 different houses. Me and my brother actually living in a house while we were young men after he got out of the army. But every house, it seemed, that we moved to had some sort of energy, or had some sort of spirit, or a haunting, or something going on, So that's my story about talking to the dead, everybody. So yeah, it's real. It happens. So you can always share your stories with me. Send them to the Anonymous John Podcast at gmail.com. I'll share your stories on the air. That's my story for the evening, everybody. If you have anything, like I said, that you'd like to share with me, send them to the Anonymous John Podcast at gmail.com. I'll read them on the air for you. Also, like and subscribe if you're liking what you're hearing. If you like the podcast, like, subscribe, hit all the buttons, man. And hopefully I can continue to bring you the weird, the strange, the untold stories of the weird, the true stories, and sometimes terrifying stories. Okay, that's all I have for the evening. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good night.